Greetings, everyone. My name is Bodour Al Qasimi. I'm the Vice President of the International Publishers Association, and I have the honor and privilege to be conducting this interview with one of the most prominent people in publishing in Africa. We are hosting the IPA in Conversation with series, and you can find more information about these on our website and on our YouTube and Vimeo channels. So today I have a special guest with me here, Samuel Kalawale from Nigeria. Welcome, Samuel.
Thank you, Bodour. Nice to be here.
It's an honor and a privilege to have you, and I feel very special to be conducting this interview with you. Before we start, I just want to give a brief introduction about Samuel. Samuel Kalawale is the chairman of the Africa Publishers Network, APNET, and he's the managing director of University Press PLC in Nigeria. He's a seasoned publisher with years of experience in the industry. He's a past president of the Nigerian Publishers Association, past chairman of the Nigeria Book Fair Trust, and immediate past president of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria. He was voted as one of the top 25 CEOs in Nigeria in 2015 by Business Day newspaper. He's the current chairman of OOE branch of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Kalawale holds a first degree in law and was called to the Nigerian bar in 1991. He also holds an MBA with distinction from University of Liverpool and is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, National Institute of Marketing of Nigeria, and also a member of the Institute of Directors Nigeria, amongst many other professional organizations. With an early career background in legal practice and banking, he was company secretary, legal advisor of University Press PLC before his appointment as managing director and CEO. Welcome, Samuel.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you again, Samuel. And we have been working together closely in the past couple of years, of course, where IPA was very honored to have signed an MOU with APNET, and you were the driving force behind that. And we discussed many projects together, including the Africa Regional Seminar Series that took place in both Nairobi and in Lagos. So I have a set of questions here for you, Samuel, that for our audience to get to know you a little bit better. Before we start with the deep dive questions, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what the situation is like in Africa in general. How has the pandemic affected the situation in Africa? What is the update on that, specifically in the publishing sector? Was the lockdown everywhere or in certain regions? Were bookstores closed? How were home deliveries, for example, allowed? Give us a snapshot of what the pandemic was like in Africa and specifically in Nigeria.
Well, the pandemic has affected publishing in Nigeria and the rest of Africa in a very serious way. When the pandemic broke out, as the countries started getting cases, the first casualty were the schools. Schools were locked down all across Africa. And because African publishing is focused more on the schools, even when in places where publishing activities were not locked down, because the schools were not there, the customers were not there for the publishers, and so voluntary lockdown also took place. In some countries, the lockdowns were total. In some others, they were based on specific regions. But generally, it affected publishing across Africa, and most of the publishers were unable to operate and are still unable to operate even as at today.
Oh, well, what about bookstores? How has it affected bookstores in terms of access to books? Were home deliveries allowed? Were people still ordering, whether it's on WhatsApp or online?
In a few countries that have developed e-books marketing, business was still on. there could be home delivery. But for most part of Africa, what we have are educational publishers who publish school curriculum-based books. For those who are in this line of business, it's very difficult. They had to close down. For the bookshops, a number of bookshops were open, but we've not been used to that kind of ordering from home for a long time. And when you look at the fact that the biggest sales are coming from textbooks, you find out that most people are not interested in ordering that much for leisure, unlike what we have in developed countries. Most people were so preoccupied with surviving the pandemic, and the fact that their sources of income have been affected. So the consumers were not really ordering that much in terms of books. In developed countries, governments made efforts to cushion the effects financially, but in most parts of Africa, that was not there. So the buying power was not actually there for people to buy and order for home delivery. More of the home deliveries were for food items and other essentials.
I see. And what about the government? Did the governments do anything to support this crisis and what is happening in terms of education, publishing, creative industries? Were there any initiatives that were launched in any of the governments in Africa that you could share with us?
Across Africa, the efforts that were made were not really to support publishing industry as a specific industry. There were measures taken to support small businesses and other business owners. The publishers will fit into whichever category they belong. For small and medium enterprises, we have publishers in that category. They were able to benefit from some of the low-cost loans that the governments were giving. In some countries like Kenya, the government also tried by paying arrears to businesses that they have worked with. So where publishers were being owed, payments were made. There were tax reliefs, but these were general, not specifically targeted at the publishing industry. But in terms of getting education going, a number of countries in Africa also set up online libraries and also went on air to have online classes for students. Private institutions also went online. A lot of that were there. But the session for publishers was at a particular time when books are not being purchased because we're right in the middle of the session. So even when we have schools being online, they were using the books that they were already purchased. So there was not much going on for publishers in that respect. So that was what we have had for quite a while. Some governments are reopening, but there is no specific targeted effort to help publishers because publishing generally has not been seen as an essential service. That is where the problem lies.
I hear you, Samuel, and I think from these interview series, we've also noticed that a lot of people from different countries have said the same thing. So we can really see a pattern there. Unfortunately, if publishers are not getting much support, it's very difficult for them to actually do anything. But have there been any cases where publishers have actually stepped up and taken on initiatives to support distance learning, for example?
Yes, we've seen quite a number. The challenge is the same challenge we've had all this while. Why the pandemic is affecting African publishers probably more than publishers in most other countries and continents. The fact that most of our books were print-based even before now. So even if you want to support online, it's difficult to now start, afresh to begin to put ebooks together. Only those publishers who have had the opportunity of, doing ebooks and have them are those that have been able to really support online learning, because some of them have donated ebooks towards the online libraries that some of the countries in Africa have set up. But that notwithstanding, there are some other companies that I know, for example, in Nigeria, that have done revision classes, video tutorials that have been sent across free of charge for students, especially those who are at the who are preparing for external examinations for them to get ready at home. A lot of that is going on. We also know that publishers, for example, in Ghana, the Ghana Book Publishers Association made donations of books to COVID-19 patients that were in isolation. And they also donated PPE to the government to support the fight, hand sanitizers, face masks, and all those. In Nigeria, also, I'm aware of publishers donating money to COVID-19 fund of different state governments. So quite a lot of these are going on across Africa. Publishers are trying to reach out because, like we had an online meeting of publishers associations chairman. One of the things we told them, this is the time to step up. If you want to be relevant, you have to show that it's not just all about the money, you also care. So that when all this is over, and the government respects you, they will note that you stepped up when there was a need. So it is very, very important, and quite a number of publishers are doing that across Africa.
That's wonderful to hear, Samuel. And early on in the pandemic, APNET produced a great report on the situation in Africa, which you've shared with IPA. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit about that. Let us know if this has been updated recently and what APNET is doing currently to support its members.
Well, the report was part of the action of APNET to try and look at the situation to see what was going on. We've also been trying, we are making efforts now to update because quite a number of things are changing across the different countries, different from what we had in the initial report. The effort to update the report is on, and we're hoping that within a very short time, we'll be able to produce an updated version. But based on what we have seen, the focus is on encouraging our members and getting members across Africa to talk. One of the efforts that APNET is making to support African publishers is the fact that when we looked at the report, one thing that was common to all countries is the fact that African publishing has not been prepared for digital publishing. A lot has been said, seminars have been had to say that's the next level, but nothing has happened, to date. People know that this is the next thing, is the future, but they don't know what steps to take. So what we are trying to do is to encourage publishers. We want to do a webinar on digital publishing. We want to have that at 2 levels for decision makers in publishing houses. How do you set up a digital publishing program? We also want to train those lower down the ladder, designers and IT persons in publishing houses on how to actually take the step. Everyone has said about it is the future, but how do you move to do that? Initially, we're discussing with WIPO. They are offering to support in organizing a webinar in that respect. But we'll also be looking up to the IPA. If we can work together, we can have experts from all across the world that can talk to African publishers on the actual steps to be taken, not about how important digital publishing is. We all know that now, that we want to take steps, but people don't know what steps to take. So that is what we're trying to do to support our members. We've also asked from our members what they would want us to do, because the requirements are different in the different countries. What do you want us to talk to your government about? How to make them see that books are essential to culture and to education, and how they need to support publishers. Some countries have been giving us responses. What specific message do you want us to give your government? So we are putting all those together in support of publishers across Africa. We had planned some trainings for publishers in Africa before now. We were supposed to have one in Cote d'Ivoire. Didn't hold. With the support of the Sharjah Book Authority, we were supposed to have one in Tanzania, which has also been suspended. We need to look at the future now and see whether we still want to have the physical ones, or we want to see if we can have an online kind of training. But IPA can also support in that respect. Like we have always said, this era of APNET, we're not looking really for the money, but for the expertise. If we can organize it together to talk to African publishers about digital publishing, so that we can have experts from all across the world tell us the specific steps, trainings that will get us there. We want the action now. It's not about the theory anymore.
Of course, I think that those words are really important right now. Is about action, about getting publishers to take that step and really explore digital. And it's not going to be easy to make that change. So as much guidance and support is needed, IPA is happy to collaborate on that, I'm sure. Now it leads me to my last question, Samuel. As you know, we launched the Africa Publishing Innovation Fund last year in Nairobi, and we had finalists announced who were focusing projects on indigenous language publishing and literacy. This year, we announced the new theme for the Africa Publishing Innovation Fund that is sponsored by Dubai Cares. We're focusing on remote learning challenges and digital education. So what do you see as the main challenges in this area? What do you think of this focus? We have opened the nominations now, and we're receiving quite a few nominations already. We have a website as well, www.api.fund, and we've been getting quite a few submissions on our website. Let me know, what do you think the main challenges are in remote learning education? What do you think of this new focus that IPA has decided to focus on in the fund?
Well, thank you for that. It goes in line with my response to the last question that you asked about digital publishing, and the fact that we have to begin to look at remote learning. So I must commend IPA and the Dubai Cares for that initiative. It is a very good one. One of the major challenges we have is the vast landmass that we have in Africa. There are cities that are well developed where infrastructure is available, but there are also many people in the remote areas. So if we are looking at remote learning, I'm looking at it not just from the aspect of learning away from the brick and mortar schools. I'm looking at it from taking learning to those who are in the remote areas. Most people in the cities can afford, many private schools are online now, the teaching is going on. But what about those in the rural areas? What about those in areas where there is no internet, where the infrastructure is not good, the electricity is poor and all that? How do we reach them? That is the major challenge that I see. The remoteness is not only in terms of the distance to be covered before you get to them, it's also their remoteness from the kind of infrastructure that they need to be able to get educated. So I want to recommend to IPA, in looking at these innovations, these are the issues that needs to be looked at, because there is no point in innovating remote learning for those who are in the cities. The remote should be for those who are remote from the cities. I think that should be the focus. That is where it can have more impact. Most people who live in the cities, the schools are going online through Zoom lectures and all that. A lot of this have been done. But I also want to see a kind of collaboration between different stakeholders in the book chain to be able to get this done. The technology companies may have to collaborate with publishers and others to make sure that we have something that will reach out as widely as possible for people to learn without going to because we have seen now in Africa that online learning is not as inferior as one would think. And that's a good thing. We see a lot more institutions going into this area of learning. My MBA from the University of Liverpool was done full-time online. And, we used to have this look at it as if it's something that, is not as good as what you get from brick and mortar university. So this has changed the narrative. And it's a good thing that IPA is looking in that direction. May I also recommend to IPA, if it is possible, to have a kind of interaction like this for publishers across Africa, for you to talk about this. We've done some things in this regard to disseminate to members the availability of this fund and all that. But from the feedback, not many know what exactly is to be done. In the latest APNET news letter, it is there. We've been talking to them, but I know that this is meant to benefit Africa. But if we can have a session like this, where publishers, technology companies, stakeholders in the book business can come together and talk to them about this effort, then we'll be able to get a better result with the nominations and the entries coming in. And also to encourage a combination of different stakeholders to be able to provide really innovative ideas as to how remote learning can benefit the citizens of Africa.
Yes, that's a great idea, Samuel. I'll definitely discuss that with the team in IPA, and we'd love to give more clarity on the guidelines of the Africa Publishing Innovation Fund. Now, before I leave you and say goodbye, I just want to ask you if you have anything to share in terms of any positive outcomes that have come out from this COVID-19 pandemic lockdown. Do you have any interesting stories to share? I know you've been spending a lot of time with your family. You just celebrated a milestone birthday. And I just want to know if you have any positives that you see came out from this situation.
Well, the positive that is there for me, really for publishing generally across Africa, is the fact that we now know we're now having to leapfrog. We've been talking about digital publishing, about online marketing, home delivery of books, but we've not taken action. This is forcing us to take action as publishers in Africa. I think that's a positive. We are very resilient people, and I know that we'll take the positive from it, and you will see more of digital publishing coming out of Africa. That's one of it. At personal levels, it has helped individuals to reconnect with families. Most of us spend time away from family. I'm always on the road. I'm always traveling. We should have been in Lillehammer. I should have been in Tanzania and so many other places, like but I'm home with family. The schools are closed. We are getting quality time together. That's also helping. And for me, it's a good thing personally. But it's also helping us to rethink our business models all across Africa. And that's the positive that I think we can take away from it. It also tells us that, at personal levels, that sometimes what we feel is the most important is not the most important. We need to live the life when we have the opportunities. I look at photos of places I've been, and I wish how everything can just normalize and I can be in those places and enjoy them again. I saw your photograph on Facebook taking the view of the desert in. Those are the moments that you look forward to. I'm sure when we have the opportunity to move around again, I will value life more than we have valued it before. That for me, that's a positive on a personal level. May I also use the opportunity to thank you, Bodour. You've been wonderful for Africa. We love you in Africa. We know how you've been pushing for things to come to Africa and the interest that you have for African publishers. We don't take it for granted. We appreciate you so much in Africa.
Thank you so much, Samuel. I appreciate you too. And this has been a wonderful interview. And we've learned a lot about you and about your vision for APNET and African publishing and what APNET is doing to support publishers and all its members in Africa. We look forward to collaborating more with you in the future. Thank you again for your time. And to our audience members, thank you again for listening. And please keep up to date with all of our interview series that we have lined up for you, IPA in conversation with, and look out for our next guest speaker. Thank you, Samuel, and goodbye, everyone.